The Imperial Hall of Virith had seen countless warriors kneel, but never a human. The throne chamber stretched nearly 200 meters long, its towering obsidian pillars glowing faintly with veins of violet crystal. Between those pillars stood warriors from 100 worlds, scaled generals from the Dravic Dominion, armored insectoid commanders of the Tauri Swarm, towering reptilian nobles of the Saracen clans. Every one of them wore medals. Every one of them had killed. And every one of them was staring at the human. Daniel Mercer stood alone at the center of the chamber floor, his boots echoing softly against the polished black stone. His uniform was simple, gray military fabric with no decoration except a single worn insignia on his collar. No medals. No ceremonial armor. Just a man. Which was exactly why the room was whispering. That's the human? They say he survived the siege of Carthus. No, that's impossible. He's smaller than I expected. Daniel ignored them all. He kept his gaze forward toward the throne. Because the one voice that mattered had not spoken yet. At the far end of the hall, the throne of the Virith Empire rose like a jagged crown of black crystal. And seated upon it was the most powerful ruler in the known galaxy, Queen Lysara Valeth. She was beautiful in a way that made lesser beings uncomfortable. Tall and elegant, with silver skin that shimmered like moonlight and eyes the color of burning stars. Her crown floated slightly above her head, held aloft by invisible gravitational fields, an ancient symbol of imperial authority. But it was not her beauty that frightened people. It was her arrogance. Queen Lysara ruled over 14,000 star systems, and she had never lost a war. The court finally fell silent as she leaned forward on her throne, studying the human as if he were some curious insect someone had brought into her palace. Step forward, she commanded. Her voice echoed across the hall like a blade sliding free of its sheath. Daniel obeyed. 3 slow steps. The whispering grew louder again. Up close, the difference between him and the alien nobles became even clearer. Most of the commanders in the room were massive creatures bred for combat, thick armor plating, claws, fangs, natural weapons of war. Daniel had none of those. He looked ordinary, which made the rumors even harder to believe. Queen Lysara tilted her head slightly. So, she said, her voice dripping with mild amusement, this is the legendary human soldier. Daniel said nothing. That seemed to amuse her even more. I expected someone larger, she continued. More impressive. A few alien nobles chuckled softly. Daniel didn't react. The queen rested her chin against one hand. Tell me, human, what is your name? Daniel Mercer, he replied calmly. His voice carried through the chamber with surprising strength. Daniel Mercer, she repeated slowly. The survivor of the Battle of Red Horizon. The last defender of Carthus Gate. The ghost of the Orion Expanse. The titles echoed through the court. Many of the generals shifted uncomfortably. Because those battles were legendary. And horrifying. Queen Lysara's eyes gleamed. Yet when I look at you, she said softly, I see only a tired man. Daniel met her gaze. That's accurate. The court murmured again. No one spoke to the queen that way. Lysara raised an eyebrow. Honest, she said. Bold. She stood from her throne. The entire hall stiffened. When the Queen of Virith stood, it meant judgment was coming. She descended the steps slowly, her long silver cloak trailing behind her like flowing light. Each step echoed. Closer. Closer. Until she stood only a few meters away from Daniel Mercer. Up close, she was taller than him by nearly half a meter. And yet Daniel didn't step back. The queen circled him once, examining him like a predator deciding whether prey was worth the effort. Your reputation is fascinating, she said. Rumors spread quickly during war. Oh, these are more than rumors. She stopped in front of him again. I have reports. She lifted one elegant finger. The Battle of Vraxis. Another finger. The Siege of Carthus Gate. Another. The Orion Expanse insurgency. Her eyes narrowed slightly. And the fall of the Devourer fleet. That one caused a ripple of shock through the chamber. Several alien generals looked at Daniel with new intensity. Because that battle was impossible. Entire armadas had died fighting the Devourers. And somehow, a human unit had survived. Queen Lysara smiled faintly. So I must ask myself a question. She clasped her hands behind her back. Is the human warrior truly as dangerous as the stories claim? Daniel shrugged slightly. Stories exaggerate. Do they? Her gaze sharpened. Because according to my intelligence network, you have been fighting since you were 18 years old. Correct. And you are now 43. Several nobles blinked. That meant something very specific. 25 years of warfare. Queen Lysara's smile grew colder. Tell me something, human. Her voice carried across the silent hall. In all those years, how many wars have you fought? The question seemed almost casual. But everyone in the chamber leaned forward slightly. Because they knew this was a test. A trap. Most commanders in the galaxy fought in maybe 3 wars during their lifetime. Great generals might see 5. Legends might survive 10. Daniel Mercer didn't answer immediately. He seemed to consider the question carefully. Then he spoke. 99. The entire hall went silent. Not quiet. Silent. As if the universe itself had paused to make sure it had heard correctly. Queen Lysara blinked once. Excuse me? Daniel repeated it calmly. 99 wars. No one breathed. Then the whispers exploded. That's impossible. No species survives that. He's lying. He must be lying. But the queen raised her hand. The hall fell silent again instantly. She stared at Daniel Mercer with an expression that had lost its amusement. 99, she said slowly. Yes.
That is an absurd number. Probably. And yet you say it without hesitation. Daniel shrugged again. It's just math. A ripple of confusion spread through the court. Queen Lysara narrowed her eyes. Explain. Daniel glanced around the room briefly. At the generals, the admirals, the alien nobles who had spent their lives studying the art of war. Then he looked back at the queen. You asked how many wars I've fought, he said. I did. You didn't ask how many I started. The room went quiet again. Something in Daniel's tone had changed. It was subtle, but dangerous. Queen Lysara noticed. Clarify, she demanded. Daniel folded his hands behind his back. The first war I fought and lasted 6 years, he said. It ended when 3 planets burned. The court shifted uneasily. That was when I learned something important. And what was that? Daniel's eyes were very calm. Most species think war ends when someone wins. A pause. Humans learned a different lesson. Queen Lysara's gaze sharpened. And what lesson is that? Daniel answered quietly. War never really ends. The temperature of the room seemed to drop. He continued. It only pauses. Several generals exchanged glances. Because they understood what that meant. Daniel looked directly at the queen. By the time the galaxy notices a war is happening, humans have usually already been fighting it for years. The silence returned. He tilted his head slightly. So, when you ask how many wars I've fought, another pause. The real answer depends on how you define the word war. Queen Lysara studied him carefully. For the first time since the conversation began, she looked uncertain. But arrogance is a difficult habit to break. So she laughed. A clear, sharp sound that echoed across the throne hall. 99 wars, she repeated mockingly. How dramatic. She turned away from him slightly and addressed the gathered commanders. This is exactly why the galaxy finds humans amusing. Several nobles chuckled nervously. Such flair for exaggeration. Then she turned back to Daniel. Very well, human. Her eyes gleamed again. If you truly fought 99 wars, she stepped closer. Tell me something. Daniel waited. The queen's smile turned razor sharp. Why are you still alive? The question hung in the air like a drawn weapon. And for the first time, Daniel Mercer smiled. But there was nothing warm about it. I was wondering when someone would ask that.
The Queen's question hung in the air like a blade. Why are you still alive? Daniel Mercer's faint smile didn't disappear. Instead, he slowly looked around the throne hall. Hundreds of warriors stared back at him. Commanders who had crushed rebellions. Admirals who had burned worlds. Generals who believed they understood war. Daniel's voice when he spoke was calm. Luck. A few nobles laughed. Queen Lysara didn't. She stepped closer. You expect me to believe that you survived 99 wars because of luck? No, Daniel said. Then explain. Daniel sighed slightly as if remembering something unpleasant. The first war I fought was called the Solar Frontier Conflict. No one in the hall recognized the name. That's because it was small, Daniel continued. Just a border war between two human colonies. 2 planets. 6 years. 80 million dead. The room grew quiet. Queen Lysara folded her arms. That sounds like a typical conflict. Daniel nodded. That's what we thought too. He paused. Until the war ended. And? Daniel looked directly at her. Both planets were uninhabitable. Several alien nobles shifted uneasily. Humans learned something during that war, Daniel continued. What? Daniel's voice dropped slightly. That victory is meaningless if nothing survives. The Queen tilted her head. And yet you kept fighting. Daniel nodded once. Because the galaxy didn't stop attacking us. The room murmured again. You see, he continued, when humanity first joined the galactic stage we were considered weak. Some of the generals smirked. Daniel noticed. That's normal, he said calmly. Every species thinks that when they meet humans. Queen Lysara leaned slightly closer. And why is that? Daniel gestured to himself. We look fragile. No claws. No natural armor. No psychic abilities. He spread his hands slightly. Just bones and skin. The Queen nodded slowly. Yes, that is the general consensus. Daniel smiled again. But humans evolved on a death world. Several commanders frowned. The term carried meaning in galactic strategy. Death worlds created dangerous species. Daniel continued. Predators everywhere. Diseases. Unstable weather. Limited resources. He looked around the chamber. Humans survived because we learned one thing faster than any other species. And what is that? The Queen asked. Daniel's eyes were steady. How to end wars permanently. The silence deepened. Queen Lysara frowned slightly. That is impossible. Daniel shrugged. That's what the First Empire thought too. Part 3, The Wars of Humanity. The Queen walked slowly back toward her throne. Explain yourself, human. Daniel remained standing in the center of the hall. The second war I fought, he said, was against the Dravic Dominion. Several reptilian generals stiffened. That war lasted 2 years. And how did it end? One of them demanded. Daniel looked at him. The Dominion surrendered. The general hissed softly. That was centuries ago. Yes. Daniel nodded. I was there. The room went silent again. Queen Lysara sat on her throne. You expect us to believe you are centuries old? Daniel shook his head. No. Then explain. Daniel tapped the small metal insignia on his collar. This. One of the Empire's scientists stepped forward cautiously. That symbol? Daniel nodded. Human Continuity Program. The scientist's eyes widened. You're a war continuity officer. Daniel looked at him with mild approval. Correct. The Queen frowned. What does that mean? Daniel spoke simply. It means I've died 98 times. The room erupted in shock. Queen Lysara slammed her staff against the floor. Silence. The hall obeyed instantly. She stared down at Daniel. You claim that you died in every war? Yes. And yet you stand here. Daniel nodded again. Humans record everything. Every battle. Every strategy. Every mistake. He tapped his temple. My memories are stored. The scientist whispered in awe. Memory reconstruction. Daniel continued. When a war continuity officer dies, Their memories are transferred to a new body. The court looked horrified. You're not one man, the queen realized. Daniel shrugged slightly. I'm 99 versions of the same soldier. A heavy silence settled over the hall. One general spoke carefully. That would mean humanity remembers every war perfectly. Daniel nodded. Exactly. Queen Lysara leaned back in her throne slowly. So the knowledge of every battlefield, every mistake, every victory, accumulates. Yes. The queen's arrogance finally cracked slightly. How many war continuity officers exist? Daniel answered calmly. 3,000. The hall went completely still. 3,000 soldiers. Each carrying centuries of warfare. Each remembering every battle their predecessors fought. Queen Lysara whispered slowly. That means humanity never forgets how to fight. Daniel met her gaze. Correct. Part 4. The real meaning of 99. The queen stood again. So tell me, human. Her voice had lost some of its mockery. Why stop at 99? Daniel looked down briefly. Because the 100th war will be different. How? Daniel finally spoke the words that froze the entire court. Because your empire started it. No one moved. Queen Lysara's eyes narrowed. You dare accuse the Virith Empire of aggression? Daniel nodded toward one of the holographic star maps floating above the hall. Sector 81. Several officers stiffened. That system belongs to us, the queen said. It belongs to a human colony. That colony refused Imperial protection. Daniel's voice was quiet. They refused occupation. The queen's expression hardened. You are one soldier. You cannot threaten an empire. Daniel shook his head. I'm not threatening you. Then what are you doing? Daniel's eyes were cold now. Warning you. The hall felt smaller somehow. You see, Daniel continued, humans don't start wars lightly anymore. But when we do. He paused. We finish them. Queen Lysara laughed again, though the sound was thinner now. You expect us to fear one soldier? Daniel shrugged. You shouldn't. Then why are you here? Daniel answered simply. Diplomacy. The court blinked. Diplomacy? The queen repeated. Yes. Daniel stepped forward once. I came to offer peace before the 100th war begins. The queen stared down at him. And if we refuse? Daniel's voice didn't change. Then humanity will fight its 100th war. And you believe you would win? Daniel looked around the throne hall slowly. At the generals, the admirals, the warriors of 1,000 species. Then he looked back at the queen. No. That answer surprised everyone. Daniel continued quietly. We don't win wars. The queen frowned. Then what do you do? Daniel answered with terrifying calm. We outlast them. Part 5. The queen understands. Silence fell across the chamber. The queen studied Daniel Mercer for a long time. Then she asked the most important question of the night. How many of your 99 wars ended in victory? Daniel didn't hesitate. None. The hall erupted in confusion. Then why are you still alive? Daniel answered softly. Because our enemies aren't. The meaning hit the room like a meteor. Human wars didn't end in victory. They ended in extinction. Not always immediate, but inevitable. Empires collapsed. Economies shattered. Civilizations eroded until nothing remained but history. Humans didn't conquer. They endured. And eventually, they were the only ones left standing. Queen Lysara slowly sat back on her throne. For the first time in her reign, she looked uncertain. 99 wars, she whispered. Daniel nodded. Yes. And the 100th? Daniel's answer was simple. That depends on you. The throne hall remained silent for a very long time. Finally the queen spoke. Leave us. Her court stared in shock. Your Majesty. I said leave. The chamber emptied quickly. Soon only two figures remained. The queen. And the human soldier. She looked at him carefully. You came alone. Yes. Why? Daniel answered honestly. Because if the fleet came, diplomacy would already be over. Queen Lysara exhaled slowly. You are either very brave, or very confident. Daniel shrugged. Neither. Then what? Daniel finally gave the answer that ended the conversation. Experienced. The Queen stared at him for a long time. Then she laughed softly. Not arrogantly. Not mockingly. Just quietly. 99 wars. She shook her head slightly. Very well, human. Daniel waited. Queen Lysara raised her hand toward the star map. The system labeled Sector 81 disappeared from Imperial territory. The colony is independent. Daniel nodded once. Thank you. The Queen leaned forward slightly. Tell me something, Daniel Mercer. Yes. If the 100th War had begun. Daniel stopped at the doorway. What would have happened? He looked back one last time. And his answer echoed through the empty throne hall. History would repeat itself. Then he walked out, leaving behind an empire that had just realized something terrifying. Humanity didn't need to win wars. They only needed to survive them. And after 99 wars, they had become very good at it. The end.